talk about commutative and associative properties. And Nikki walks 2 blocks to her friend Sierra's house. They walk another 4 blocks to school. At the end of the day, they walk back to Sierra's house. Then Nikki walks home. So notice, Nikki walks 2 blocks and 4 blocks. And that's the same thing as if she walks 4 blocks plus 2 blocks. That's called the commutative property for addition. And here's the important thing about the commutative property. The order in which you add or multiply numbers does not change their sum or product. So for addition or multiplication, order doesn't matter. That's what the commutative property tells us. For addition and multiplication, order doesn't matter. That's the commutative property. So I want to make sure you know that's all this is saying. Commutative property says the order doesn't matter. 4 plus 8 is the same thing as 8 plus 4. 7 times 11 is the same thing as 11 times 7. And then we have something with grouping, and that's called the associative property. And the associative property says no matter how you group things together, if you're adding and multiplying, it doesn't change the sum or product. So like if we look at an example with numbers, if I put parentheses around 3 plus 5 plus 7, that's the same thing as 3 plus parentheses 5 plus 7. And this actually ties right back into the commutative property, because notice, when I add parentheses, the only thing I'm changing is the order. Instead of adding these up in any order, I'm saying, hey, you have to do 3 plus 5 first. But we know in the commutative property, order doesn't matter for addition. So it doesn't matter if I do 3 plus 5 first, or if I do 5 plus 7 first. Order doesn't matter with addition or multiplication. That's where we get this associative property. It says, I can group these however I want. I can group 3 and 5 together. I could group 5 and 7 together. You can group numbers however you want. It won't change the answer. That's the associative property. So associative property deals with grouping. So you might want to write that down. Associative property deals with grouping. So now let's look at an example. And this is kind of a more complicated way, because obviously if you guys were adding up these numbers, you just add them up together. What I want to show you though is that in this example, you can make problems easier by grouping them together, and it makes it easier to do in your head. So we've got Eric makes a list of items that he needs to buy for a party and their cost. We want to find the total cost. Obviously, if you guys wanted to find the total cost, you would just add them all up together and you would get $64.50. But let's say you're stranded on a desert island and you don't have a calculator and you just need to somehow do this answer in your head. Well, if I group these first 2 numbers together, I can see 675 plus 23.25. I've got a 75 plus a 25 cent, so that's $1. 6 plus 23 is 29, so I'd get $30. And all I did was try to make this easier in my head, because then adding 30 plus 34.50 by grouping the other numbers, that's a lot easier to do in my head than trying to add all these up at once. So basically, just understand the associative property and the commutative property can help make problems easier in your head, but in the real world, probably you would just add all these up and you don't need to know a shortcut. But this is all this example is showing, is that there could be a shortcut if you want it.